Are you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we are the Quantum Mechanics, the paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everybody in between.
Yes, we are. We got a new Patreon this week as well, haven't we?
We have, yeah. They are called Nobody Important, so that sounds like an insult, but that's what they call themselves. So welcome, thank you. You are important to us.
I was just about to say the same thing. Yes, Nobody Important is very important to us, so thanks very much. And if you want to consider becoming a Patreon and supporting us, go to patreon.com/TQM pod. Lots of new stuff that we've added. We're doing a weekly extra bit of the Quantum Mechanics exclusively for Patreons called Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop. And we did the first one a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it was good. Went down well with the Patreons. It's a bit more casual than our normal podcast. At first I thought we're just talking rubbish, but people seem to like us talking rubbish, so we'll keep doing it.
It's the same old thing, really, but we take our trousers off. That's how it works.
Yeah.
I find these formal podcasting trousers very restrictive.
Yes, yeah. No, we go full on for the extra scoop, so check that out. And obviously you're supporting us as well. Well, should we just get straight into it? Let's talk about the future.
I don't really want to talk about the future, it's terrifying. Yeah. But for the purposes of the show, yes.
Well, over the past few years of doing this podcast, we often return to one question, don't we, Ben? If ghosts exist, what are they?
What are they? Yeah, exactly.
Now, putting aside the idea that they are just purely a psychological phenomenon, I guess the most widely believed answer to what ghosts are is that they are the spirits of the dead. Mm-hmm. With unfinished business or for some reason unable to step into the light, whatever the light is.
Yeah.
That seems to be the most widely held belief, right?
Agreed.
Ghost sightings tend to fall, in my mind, into two main categories. So there's seeing the ghost of a loved one or relative. I guess a doubter would say that's some psychological part of the grief process.
Yeah.
The second, I guess we'd call them more historical ghosts, right? So the raft of sightings of women or children in white Victorian or Edwardian dress, the overworked, mysterious monk doing his haunting.
The Grey Lady.
We've also talked about the omnipresent ghost of Dick Turpin, or the multiple Dick Turpins.
Henry VIII. He pops up a lot.
Yeah, that's another one. Now, I read a blog by Beth Bartlett from the University of Dayton, who had a tongue-in-cheek take on what the next generation of ghosts might look like, which it's a little funny blog she wrote. She says, according to paranormal experts, ghosts are often spotted as they go through the motions of their former lives, cooking, walking down the steps and peering out of windows. She says, this distresses me. If I come back as a ghost, I'll be forever haunched over a computer desk, my brow furrowed and my transparent fingers tapping over an invisible keyboard, desperate to make a deadline that's centuries overdue.
That's very poetic, I like that.
Yeah, really good. She goes on to imagine what the next generations of ghosts will look like, putting them into genres. I'm not going to cover them all, I've just picked a few out. She starts with what she calls the selfie ghost. These descriptions are really funny. She says, manifesting mostly in bathrooms. These ghosts remain unseen unless you look directly into the mirror. You may think you're prepared, but you'll still scream every time you glance up and see the faint outline of cheeks sucked in and lips puckered in a ghostly duck face. Legend has it, if you turn out the lights and whisper, "Boo, caught me sleeping," 3 times, you'll see a body slumped over, except for a single outstretched hand holding a phone.
Nice, very nice.
Now, another type of next-gen ghost that Beth predicts is the texting ghost. The most oblivious spirit, a texting ghost may not even realise he's haunting you because he's so caught up in staring at a small box in his palm. Texting ghosts don't interact. They just walk through walls, furniture, road signs, even people. They don't pay attention to where they're going, which is likely how they became ghosts in the first place. Sometimes they will slump in the corner near an electrical output in the hopes of charging their phone.
Excellent.
The last one I'm going to feature from Beth is she calls the buffering ghost. a form of poltergeist. The buffering ghost doesn't fling chairs or drag you from your bed. Instead, this ghost keeps you from doing anything at all by pinning you down with an internally spinning circle. You can wait out a buffering ghost and see if the spiritual bandwidth speeds up, but if you spend too much time at the mercy of these rotating spirits, seek out an IT certified exorcist.
Very, very good. Oh, God. This last week I've had that with my computer.
Have you?
Yes, back to have it repaired again. And the thought that I might need to buy a new one anyway.
Beach ball of death?
Beach ball of death.
Oh, I hate the beach ball of death. Well, Best Humorous Blog got me thinking, if ghosts are the spirits of the dead, why do we mainly see ancient monks? Why don't we see mods or punk rockers? Why ghostly Victorian women in white rather than supernatural Victoria's Secret supermodels trying to find warmth on a cold night?
That's true. We did speak to Ethiopia a while, didn't we? But there was a naked ghost, but very rarely are there like alluring, sexy ghosts.
No, but I guess for me, the point is, if you look at, it's a monk. Why is it not a punk?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a report of a punk ghost with a Mohican,
No.
or looking like Sid Vicious.
No, I mean, the closest we do get these reports of like the ghost of Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they seem to be few and far between. And it might just be that we don't notice them because they blend in so much with modern life. But you're right, it is unusual.
Well, I did go looking for a theory of why that might be the case, which leads me to paranormal expert Dr. Paul Lee, because he's got a sort of answer, I guess. He explained his theory in an interview with the UK tabloid newspaper, The Daily Star, last month. You might have seen this, Ben. A lot of you might have seen this. The headline of the piece is, UK is running out of ghosts as old spirits dying off, paranormal expert says. So the article goes on to say, Britain is facing a ghost shortage as ageing spirits are passing over to the other side, according to a leading paranormal expert. Dr. Paul Lee believes that the UK's spectral heritage is in serious decline as many ghosts have become dormant or moved on. The paranormal researcher and author shared, since January 2020, I've been contacting all the reported haunted locations on my app and asking if the residents, owners or staff have experienced any unexplained activity. So far, I've had almost 800 replies, and even supposedly highly haunted places like Conisbrough Castle in South Yorkshire or Editon Park Hotel in Stratford, said to be one of the most haunted hotels in the UK, and Fortnum and Masons in Piccadilly, all say they haven't experienced anything in the last few years.
Okay.
Dr. Lee added in the chat with the Daily Star, but it does seem as though many famous ghosts are either dormant or have faded away or moved on. He suggests, it's an interesting theory, he says it could be that a spirit had a natural source of energy to begin with, which has dwindled away over time, leaving them without the reserves to manifest anymore. However, Dr. Lee, who hails from Fairstead, Norfolk, and holds a PhD in nuclear physics, offered a glimmer of hope, stating, it may be that ghosts can be recharged. He concluded, you sometimes hear stories of ghosts suddenly appearing again after many years' absence.
That's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, well, so according to Dr. Lee, Ben, ghosts may have a level of energy that they start off with. I thought of it like a fully charged battery. And then ghosts are less prevalent now because their spiritual battery power is running low. Now, if we go with this theory, it doesn't really explain why we see more historical type ghosts rather than more modern ones.
Yeah, because they would have run out on that theory.
Yeah, and surely they're being replaced, right? I guess unless the spirit batteries were better or more powerful back in the day.
Maybe there are two different sorts of ghosts. Maybe he's talking about the sort of sentient, still a spirit, and then maybe those historical ones are more the replay of events, the stone tape. Stone tape
theory.
The stone tape theory, yes.
Which would make sense with the battery analogy, because eventually you're going to run out of energy to play it back, I guess. And the other thing I thought about, the more up-to-date ghosts, let's say, rather than the historical ones, if you go with that battery analogy, maybe modern ghosts are not fully charged yet. Maybe they don't start off with a full charge. Maybe they need to get charged, which is why we see less of them. That was one of my thoughts. But this theory only works if you accept the premise that ghosts are the spirits of the dead. But we've explored other ideas, haven't we, Ben, such as ghosts being interdimensional beings, maybe ghost code in our simulated universe. We've covered a few different theories because I think both me and you go, I don't quite get this idea that they're the spirit of dead people. It kind of, they must be all over the place if that's the case. One theory that's been running through my head got sparked by the paper you featured a few weeks ago on time slips being explained by quantum physics. So put naively, that if you think about time and light in terms of waves, we've been talking a lot about waves recently, on rare occasions the past and present exist in the same moment and can interact with each other, resulting in what paranormal believers would call a time slip.
Right, yeah.
So in the episode you did, we discussed whether this could also explain ghost sightings, almost like a little quantum bubble linking the past and present, which we process in our brain as, oh, we've seen a ghost.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I've been thinking about that a lot, Ben. Would explain why someone might spot a Victorian woman in a white dress, right, or the monk. And it could also explain why certain haunted locations are more active than others. You know, maybe this quantum time slip, let's call it, happens more often in a certain location, or the conditions are right to make it happen more regularly. So it would make sense that, oh, this area's haunted or this building's haunted or whatever. In that case, we're not seeing the spirits of dead people, but momentarily occupying the same space and time with living people from our past.
Okay.
But there is a potential major flaw if you run with this idea. If these quantum time slips exist, then surely sometimes we would be the ghosts. What I was specifically thinking of is that sometimes we would be the living people in the past, simultaneously existing in this quantum bubble with people from the future. To those people in the future, in this scenario, we would look like historical ghosts.
Yes.
If that's the case, why are there not more reports of us in our time seeing futuristic ghosts?
Yeah, they are quite few and far between. They probably are delivered in that time slip context, because we spoke about how their car might have looked unusual because it was a modern car.
But only to those people in the past.
People. Yes.
So there should be examples of people in our timeline going, I saw this, Jetsons type car, you know what I mean?
That's right, yeah.
So I thought I'd go on a bit of a research quest to see if I could find them. And before you get too excited, I have to confess I struggled, Ben.
Oh.
But I did come across, I mentioned this briefly last week, or it might have been on the Extra Scoop. I came across, let's say, some interesting theories, including this on Quora, where Ian A. Heron...
He's not a heron.
He's not a heron, no.
Oh, okay.
He's not a real heron.
Not a real heron, okay.
That's his name, yeah, no. Well, he confidently answered the question, are ghosts time travellers? Heron says, this is brilliant. For the most part, the answer to this question is no. But there is a degree of exception to that answer. Here we go with this theory I've never heard before. See what you think. Normally, when a person or animal dies, their soul becomes separated from their bodies, and their soul moves forward in time to that point in time where humans have conquered death and have access to the ability to resurrect people, and then they are resurrected.
Right.
However, ghosts are those souls who do not make this journey and move on to that which comes next. These souls stay behind for a few general causes: a strong emotional attachment to a person, place or thing, kind of heard that stuff before, fear of living again, usually caused by having lived an extraordinary painful life, or a fear of unknown nature of what comes next. Very rarely, a ghost will jump through time, appearing at seemingly random periods of time, sort of playing peekaboo with a location or person. This happens when the ghost involved is intentionally skipping forward in time to periodically check in on that which is important to them. I didn't quite get that first bit. That seemed a bit... Let me just... Can I read that first bit again?
Yeah.
That theory, which I have to say, he said very confidently, yeah, I know what this is. So he says, when a person or animal dies, their soul becomes separated from their bodies, and their soul moves forward in time to that point in time where humans have conquered death and have access to the ability to resurrect people and are then resurrected.
Right.
So that's not ghosts. He's saying that's what happens to all of us, and then a few get left behind who turn into ghosts. I mean, how do you know that?
I mean, it's a good theory. I mean, I guess maybe he's had an out of body or something which has explained it. I don't know.
I just like, I know. Yeah, no, they die, and then they go forward way into the future.
Yeah.
And get resurrected. Okay.
That's going to be a very full planet.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to resurrect everybody either.
Yeah, I love that fact. It always amazes me when people are so confident about that. Do you know what I mean? That's what happens.
Well, everyone from Hitler to my grand's really horrible cat are both alive in the future.
Yeah, unless
that seems a bad mistake.
Well, Ben, coming back to this theory that ghost hauntings and encounters are time slips, not the spirits of the dead, I was struggling to find any credible reports of ghost encounters with people from the future. I couldn't find tales of people reporting seeing ghosts in futuristic clothing or ghosts carrying strange technology. I'm not saying they're out there, so if anyone's come across them, let us know. At the back of my mind, I kept thinking, maybe this is because we don't regard them as ghost encounters.
That was what was going through my head. I would be thinking strange humanoid aliens or something.
Yeah. When we time slip into the future, we would likely view these incidents as UFOs or alien encounters.
Oh, you were thinking the same, right?
I was,
right.
Yeah. Time slips are us travelling backwards in time, which equals what we regard as ghosts and hauntings. That's a ghost and haunting of my dog.
What is it, Bear? That's a warning bark, isn't it?
Let me go back to that bit. So, time slips where we travel backwards in time for us equals seeing a ghost or a haunting. Time slips where we are in the bubble in the future with future beings, UFO and alien encounters. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, that is, yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect logical sense.
Now, that was my first thought. I did think there are flaws in this theory, because how do you explain reports of alien greys or lizard people? How does that all fit into the whole thing?
That's right. And also the problem with it is that we're talking quite a long distance in the future. Like you say, you never see somebody with, well, according to your research, you're not seeing somebody with a model of Ford car from 10 years in the future.
No, you're seeing something.
It's like a flying thing from thousands of years in the future, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Although, you see, that would be brilliant if you were a car designer to see a ghost of a future car.
Yeah, future Aston Martin.
A future Aston, yeah. Mm.
Well, so if UFO reports are time slips, it is more likely that we would see humans, right, rather than greys or lizards, right? That makes logical sense.
And there are humanoid encounters. I'm sort of talking about like the Nordics and those sorts of things. But it's you're not seeing like your average man from the pub in 10 years who's just driving and we're seeing very specific all looking the same type humanoids. So
what I decided to do was go through credible UFO encounters and see whether they would fit this theory of us temporary time slipping into the future. And I started, Ben, and I realised there was a danger that I might just cherry pick cases that fit my premise, a bit of unconscious bias going on.
Yeah, but we got to look for things that might fit and then sort of see if the theory holds up.
Well, I decided to go a different way. I thought I'd do it as an experiment. So what I decided to do was Google search UFO sightings, see what came up, and see if it fitted with the time slip theory. I Google searched the phrase top 5 UFO encounters. The first hit was the top 5 most credible modern UFO sightings from history.com. So that's what I decided to use and see if it fits this quantum time travel premise. So I was on a bit of a journey. Do you know what I mean? I was trying to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Now, according to history.com, the number 1 most credible modern UFO sighting is the lights above the New Jersey Turnpike. Do you know this case?
No.
I hadn't heard this case. It was like when it came up at number 1, I was like, okay. So this event happened on July 14th, 2001. Multiple witnesses saw it, including Carteret Police Department Lieutenant Daniel Tarrant. So that's always good, isn't it? When you get we talked about this before, you get a police or some official. The witnesses reported seeing strange orange and yellow lights in a V formation over the Arthur Kill Waterway between Staten Island and New York. The event lasted around 15 minutes. So I'm not going to go into tons of detail. If you want to look up some of these in more detail, because I don't want to cover all the cases, but that's the number 1 according to history.com. So there's kind of lights, people seeing a craft. I guess it could fit time travel theory. There's nothing there that would suggest it wouldn't.
No, but why would that fit more than anything else if it's just lights? I mean, there's no individuals seen, there's no...
No, I guess it's a craft. There's something that looks out of place. The 15 minutes, I think, is interesting because it kind of disappeared. So, again, that would fit the time slip theory, wouldn't it? That the bubble had somehow ended.
It came in and out, yeah. Or it could just be that they are cloaking or moving at the speed of light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on. So, like I said, I wasn't trying to editorialise these. I just went for them. The second most credible modern sighting, according to history.com, is one we're all familiar with. The USS Nimitz encounter in 2004.
Oh, yeah.
Also known as the Tic Tac UFO. So this is, just in summary, when 2 FA-18F fighter jets from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz, they arrived in the area. They first saw what appeared to be churning water with the shadow of an oval shape underneath the surface. Then, in a few moments, a white tic-tac shaped object appeared above the water. It had no visible markings to indicate an engine, wings or windows, and infrared monitors didn't reveal any exhaust plumes coming from it. Black Ace, must be great. Black Ace's commander, David Fravor, and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, they attempted to intercept the aircraft, but it accelerated away, reappearing on radar 60 miles away. It moved 3 times the speed of sound and more than twice the speed of the fighter jets, and did some incredible manoeuvres. I've got a little bit of audio of the pilots talking about what they're seeing. We played this on the podcast before, but it's always worth another listen. Have a listen to what these 2 pilots were seeing and talking about. Here you go.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
Nickel 6-1 Tango. Roger, over.
Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger. There's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target?
No, I took an auto track.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Wow, look at it fly.
So, Ben, I've always... I mean, it's hard to know what went on with the Tic Tac and the Nimitz thing. I've always leaned towards this idea that it was a case of the US military testing the capability of a secret advanced technology on their own troops just to see how good it was. That's the one I lean to the most.
Yes.
But I guess it does fit the concept of a time slip from the future. We've got into some time slip bubble and we're witnessing some incredible craft from the future doing manoeuvres and and they would be curious about us as well, right?
A future us.
Yeah.
Yeah. That does make sense. And you aren't the first person to say that. I know that I think Jeremy Corbell has spoken about this. I think he was sort of speculating on whether it is a future, maybe not necessarily just future humans, but future inhabitants of either here or somewhere else, either travelling deliberately back in time.
Right.
I don't think he came up with the slip idea, but there was this thought that they deliberately come back in time, but we're doing it. We're talking about it, an accidental slip. Right. So that one makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, number 3 on the history.com list, remember these are modern sightings. It's the O'Hare Airport saucer in 2006, very famous one. What made this story stand out was it happened in daylight at an airport, so it was a major one. So Flight 446 was getting ready to fly to North Carolina from Chicago International Airport when a United Airlines employee on the tarmac noticed a dark grey metallic craft hovering over gate C-17. That day, November the 7th, 2006, a total of 12 United employees and a few witnesses outside the airport spotted the saucer-shaped craft at around 4:15 p.m. The witnesses said that it hovered for about 5 minutes before shooting upwards when it broke a hole in the clouds, enough that pilots and mechanics could see the blue sky in between the hole it had created. The news report became the most read story on the Chicago Tribune's website and made international news. However, because the UFO was not seen on radar, the FAA called it a weather phenomenon and declined to investigate further. I thought what was interesting in this, in terms of a time slip, I like, because you kind of go, why would these things always happen at night, in a remote forest somewhere? I know they don't, but they're often, that's what it is. I like the fact that in this encounter, it was in the day, in a busy location. You've got pilots who saw this thing. It could fit this time slip theory. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, all right, let's put it a different way. It doesn't disprove the time slip theory is a better way of looking at it.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Next, we have the Stephenville sighting in 2008. So a small town of Stephenville, Texas, 100 miles southwest of Dallas. It's known for its dairy farms, but on the evening of January the 8th, 2008, dozens of its residents viewed something unique in the sky. Citizens reported seeing white lights above Highway 67, first in a single horizontal arc and then in a vertical parallel lines. Local pilot Steve Allen estimating that the strobe lights spanned about a mile long and half-mile wide. That's huge, isn't it? And was travelling about 3,000 miles per hour. No sound was reported. It's kind of, that event has been described as very reminiscent of the Phoenix Lights in 1997.
Right, yeah, that does sound similar. With these, if one considers these perhaps a time slip, then maybe many more of them are, and maybe the time slip is caused by the propulsion systems they're using, potentially.
Yeah.
Because if we took the theory that we were discussing in the previous episode about basically creating a reverse standing wave in within a larger movement, I don't have the language to describe it, but let's say all time moving one way, there's an accidental standing wave, and we've seen it happen in gas things, so we know it's possible. Then maybe those engines cause that slip. We've speculated a lot about why aliens are so concerned with nukes and the fact that maybe it interferes with things in other dimensions. Maybe that's what those propulsion systems do as well. And so maybe it's like the difference. Then we get into syntax. What is the difference between seeing something from the future as a time slip or seeing something from the future that is a ghost? They are the same thing, because it's just our preconceptions that mean the thing has to be dead.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is things that we see in the future, they're not ghosts, they're time-slipping things. But then does that change the way we think about historical ghosts of people? Are they still spirits of the dead, or are they time-slipping? But they can't necessarily all be, because we wouldn't have multiple Dick Turpins.
That is true. Well, unless we're just seeing them and
Yeah.
prescribing them as dicterpins, or we go with that theory we had many years ago that there's a ghost look-alike agency.
We've hit upon is the terpene paradox real?
Yeah. Interesting what you're saying though, because I like the idea that, because while you were talking about that theory, I was thinking about Bob Lazar and the kind of gravity propulsion systems. That's a nice theory, that something about those gravity propulsion systems are bending space and time, and that sometimes maybe it goes wrong. And and it does take you into a time slip. That's interesting.
Well, funnily enough, I left my podcast thing going on overnight. I woke up to the Bob Lazar interview with Joe Rogan. So I decided to carry on listening to that. So I was listening to that in the car on the way over. And he does describe how these craft, they sort of go belly forwards, and the anti-gravity device that is powering them makes the craft fall forwards, belly forwards. And gravity and time are completely interconnected. So maybe you're right. Maybe sometimes it spills out.
Yeah, maybe. Well, the last one on history.com's link, I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but you can look it up. It's the East Coast Go Fast video, it's known as, from 2015. Again, it's just the site of a craft, so maybe it's not a tick, but it doesn't disprove the time slip theory. Now, remember, I just clicked on the first link that came up. These were all sightings from this century, so I thought I'd click on the second link on my search, which took me to howstuffworks.com. Top 10 most legitimate cases of UFO sightings. I'm not going to go into big detail of these, so look them up if you want. Again, just to give us a bit of a wider time frame from the first one that I clicked on. Hudson Valley UFO wave happened between 1982 and 1986. 5,000 witnesses reporting multicoloured V-shaped UFOs, often spotted near nuclear plants. Now, I thought the time frame of that was interesting. It's over an extended period. So if we go with the time slip theory, it might say that certain places are more prone to time slips, maybe because of this nuclear facility that was around, could fit that theory. Mm-hmm. There's the Shag Harbour UFO incident, very famous, that fits the theory. Westall UFO, Australia, 1966, seen by 200 students and teachers at schools. Saucer-shaped craft, that's the dog having a shake. Anchorage, Alaska, 1986. Japanese Boeing 747 cargo plane was followed by two objects. As they came close to the plane, the cabin was lit up and filled with a strange heat. The two objects flew away and a much larger disc-shaped craft emerged, followed the 747. The FBI and CIA investigated. What I thought was really interesting of that, if you went with the time slip theory, if you put yourself in the seat of the people from the future in the UFO, let's say, for them, that 747 would have just appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah.
In a sense, it would be a UFO to them, right? They would investigate, probe it, follow it. So that behaviour fits the time slip narrative. And it did make me wonder, there's lots of examples of UFOs following craft, scanning craft. If you went with this time slip narrative, you're just happily going about your day in the future, and suddenly this kind of antique appears in the sky. You're going to investigate and follow it, aren't you?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Yes. But equally, I will say again, the argument might also apply to somebody from another universe, another galaxy.
Number 6 on this list was the Chicago airport incident, which we covered. There's the Alderney UFO sighting. Again, just another straight sighting. The Belgian UFO wave was at number 4. Cash Landrum incident, December the 29th, 1980. Betty Cash, Vicky Landrum and Colby Landrum saw 23 unidentified helicopters surrounding a huge diamond-shaped object that was hovering above the trees. The object emitted such tremendous heat that the outside of their car was painful to touch, and a handprint was seared into the softened vinyl interior. The Dayton police officer, Detective Lamar Walker, and his wife also claimed to have seen helicopters near the same area. After the incident, the group suffered from vomiting, diarrhea, terrible burning sensation. Betty Cash developed painful blisters on her skin, lost clumps of hair, and was unable to walk. The radiologist examined the group and concluded that they were all suffering from secondary damage from ionising radiation. They tried to sue the US government for $20 million, but the case was dismissed.
Yeah, I had heard
You
that.
had heard this one.
Yeah. But what's very interesting about this is that that suing part of it was dismissed, but they had to go quite a long way
To get it chucked out.
but also, like, there was a lot of evidence which brought it as far as the court. I think that is one of the most compelling of the cases.
You can see, so again, if we just go with our time slip narrative for a minute, this diamond-shaped object appears, our military go nuts, send loads of helicopters and other craft to go, what the hell is going on? What I think is the interesting element of this is the radiation, the sickness. It reminded me of when you did the time slip episode about the people at Versailles and the feeling that everything was quite surreal, and it made them feel weird being in that environment, in that time slip.
Even sick.
Yeah, even sick. So that is another element that might work in terms of this theory. Number 2, the Rendlesham Forest incident, very popular. UFO observed on December 26, 1980, in Rendlesham Forest in England. After witnessing some unexplained lights, several Air Force personnel, including Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, decided to head into the woods to get a closer look. They thought they were going to see a plane crash. Instead, they saw a glowing metal object that moved at a phenomenal speed through the forest. Very famously, they returned to the site the next day. There was triangle-shaped impressions on the ground, broken branches on the trees. There was radiation readings. In 2010, retired Lieutenant Holt signed a notarised affidavit that summarised the incident and accused the US and England of a cover-up. Some people believe it was a hoax or a fallen Soviet satellite. I've even heard it was a prank played by UK on the Americans. But it has gone down as probably in this country the most relevant UFO sighting ever incident. I thought what was interesting, again, in terms of the time slip theory, was I remember there was reports of them coming across the craft and seeing strange, almost futuristic writing on it and symbols.
And there was supposedly a download of data into Colonel Holt's head that he wrote down in zeros and ones in binary, which does contain a message, but it appears to be, we're not entirely sure of the timescale on that. You have to do some leaps of logic to get to the message. You have to discard quite a lot of it that is rubbish. And also, we're not sure, like, whether it's true or not. Basically, we don't. So, I think Nick Pope actually wrote a piece about it. Like, you can't discount it, but also we've got very little evidence that is. I don't know whether it's valid or not, I suppose. But yes, you're right. In fact, there is a model of that craft at Rendlesham Forest now, and it does have these strange hieroglyphics around it. But those hieroglyphics are more suggestive of an alien civilization, or perhaps, I don't know, maybe we just have got, maybe it's from another country in the future. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, number 1 on that list was Phoenix Lights. We don't need to go into that. I guess the elephant in the room about this theory that maybe ghosts and UFO encounters are both time slips is that ghosts generally involve human-like entities, ghost sightings.
Yes.
UFO incidents generally involve craft, certainly the ones I came across in my
a lot of technology
search.
involved.
Yeah. I thought this might be the way I was searching things. I was using phrases like UFO sightings, not encounters. So I did one more search, this time top 5 alien encounters. And to be honest, that search proved more difficult as it brought up pretty much the same links as UFO sightings. So what I thought I'd do is click through the top 3 or 4 links and try and find ones that are not just about crafts, that do involve sightings of alien beings as well. So I know I could have dug further and found stories, but I thought I'd keep it scientific and just go with what I was being served in my search. So yeah, I've picked sightings and encounters with quote-unquote aliens involved. First one that came up is the Betty and Barney Hill case from 1961. Probably the most famous alien abduction case of all time, would we not say?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I'm not going to go into the detail of the story. I just want to look at it from a, could they have been involved in some type of time slip? Now, their story has helped shape alien abduction law, including probes, examinations, and grey aliens. Though the majority, I think it's worth pointing out in this case, the majority of the information was acquired through regression rather than them remembering it.
It was.
So I think there's always, that's the only bit of the Betty and Barney Hill thing that I always go, eh. But they described grey beings. How would that fit into the time slip? I guess if given the medical examination narrative, could it be someone wearing the equivalent of a futuristic surgeon's mask or something?
Well, it could be AI beings.
AI beings, that's really good. One thing I did come across, there's a strange recollection from Betty about the aliens rushing into her room excited as they'd found out that Barney's teeth could be removed. And when she explained to them that Barney had dentures, the beings found it hard to comprehend.
It's a moral story on the NHS, that.
Yeah. But
I
if
had
you go
heard
with
that.
this futuristic thing, you know, removable teeth would be you would be excited about that in the future because you probably don't need removable teeth anymore.
Yeah, you would, but like you, I think the biggest caveat around this is the fact it's regression. If you compare it to Travis Walton, who has conscious recall of many of these things, like, I worry because our brains can make up loads of stuff, including how aliens would be fascinated with false teeth. In a genuine case, last night, Richard Ayoade was completely fascinated by PG Tips pyramid tea bags. That was in my dream.
Right.
And if I had been regressed, I might have not seen the difference between my dream and reality.
Yeah.
And said, "Oh yeah, Richard Ayoade, he saw the future in pyramid tea bags."
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to bring up, but there's so much scratches of doubt around it.
Well, the other one which does tie in, so the next one in my search that involved alien, quote unquote, is the Rua, Zimbabwe incident in September 1994. Several UFOs.
That's my favourite one.
Several UFOs allegedly hovered near a school in Zimbabwe. The children who observed these UFOs were terrified. When they were asked to explain what they'd seen, they described beings with big heads, no noses, just 2 holes, no mouths, and long black hair. Children said they were dressed in dark suits and communicated telepathically. Again, you know, could it be somebody in some kind of futuristic travel outfit?
Yeah, possibly.
It's the long black hair that made me think of it, because it's like, why would an alien have long black hair? Do you know what I mean?
Have you seen Predator?
That is true.
But then it might not be hair. It might be wires. It might be something that protects them. It might be a headdress. It could be anything. And so, I mean, I know what you're saying. That does fit the narrative more. But once again, what we don't have is somebody who looks very similar to us.
Yeah.
Coming forward and either saying, well, this is weird, this looks like Earth 1,000 years ago, or something like this, or, you know, I am one of you, or anything like that.
Yeah.
We have either enigmatic remarks like Sam the Sandown Clown, you know, who says,
I thought of Sam, yeah.
Yeah, I am a ghost, but also I am not. and you have these encounters with aliens who are fascinated with false teeth, but at the same time appear to build craft that can, move many, many millions of light years in a heartbeat. If that is the case of what they are, I don't know. I don't find any of this compelling that these are. Maybe they are time slips, but it doesn't feel like they're time slips from here. Maybe they're time slips caused, as I say, deliberately from somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, the next two alien encounters on the list, these are the last two alien encounters I'm going to do, does kind of fit a little bit more that theme of them looking a bit more like us. So the next one up was the Broadhaven incident. Remember, this is a random search from me on the most credible encounters. So the Broadhaven incident in 1977, we did a whole episode on that. I love that story. It's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Go back and check that out if you've not listened to it. It's amazing. But in way of short summary, a group of primary school kids see a UFO land in a field near their school, and a humanoid being in strange clothes steps out. That, I think, would fit a time slip, just the way the kids described it, although it's a little stereotypical view of what a future being might look like, maybe. And the last one that came up was the Lonnie Zamora case. Again, we did a whole episode on that.
We did.
Great story. So, in summary, a police officer chasing some criminals spots a UFO in the desert and sees two humanoids step out and kind of wander around. There's lots of stuff post the sighting. But he described them as two people in white coveralls the size of small adults or large children.
Yeah, and the most sort of earthly explanation for that is experimental landing craft for NASA.
Yeah.
That's because there's some inscriptions on the side of the craft that may or may not include a representation of a flag.
Yeah.
And that is why people are thinking, experts, commentators say, perhaps it could be a landing craft because that would fit the right time. And then in terms of the size of the humans, perhaps he just was relating it to what he thought the size of the craft was. And so the difference in perspective over a larger distance of observation, large child, smaller human, perhaps, astronauts, then they're like jockeys. They're not going to be giant men. They're going to be 5'9", 5'10". Lots of children are 5'9", 5'10". So,
or animals like monkeys or something.
You get into the fuzzy logic of, they were quite big. Oh, they were this size. Again, I find that that unsatisfactory about that case, although I do love the case. But I also think you're right in terms of, humans from the future, because they did. I think, if I recall correctly, they saw him, got back into and legged it back to the craft, didn't they? Yeah. Which is kind of like, we've been spotted. Well,
that concept of a flag also works the theory, doesn't it? Maybe they would, but I can't believe aliens from another dimension or another place in the galaxy would necessarily have flags, would they? It seems like a strange thing to have.
Yeah, or it could be just when in Rome.
Yeah, stick one on the side.
Yeah. And that does remind me of there's a case which isn't so well known of humanoid beings being chased around Silbury Hill in Wiltshire. So Silbury Hill being the ancient, it's presumed to be a burial mound. Nobody exactly knows what it's there for, but it's a human-made hill, man-made hill. Sort of looks like a pudding bowl. It's very near Avebury, not too far from Stonehenge. And one night it's reported that two humanoid beings were spotted climbing up Silbury Hill, and then when challenged, they ran away, and they gave the distinct impression to the observers that they weren't like humans, that they weren't just regular humans, but they were humanoid.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that puts any credibility towards time slips or not, but there's certainly a humanoid sighting case anyway.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, this search was done. I tried to do it, scientifically would be a real stretch, but some logic to my search. I thought it was interesting that Roswell didn't come up as in the top credible UFO, either sightings or encounters. So I started thinking about it myself, but I guess it's really hard, isn't it, with Roswell, to separate the credible reports from the misinformation, from the legend. I mean, there are bits and pieces that would fit, the metal, the metal that could be scrunched up of almost, but again, that could be technology of the time that people weren't aware of. There was writing involved in that, and kind of, again, a type of language on it, which is weird.
Then we've got the craft in Aurora that is supposed to have knocked over a windmill, crashed, and then the being was buried at the local churchyard. And this has been often, like, in fact, there was I think it was a Nat Geo show or history show where they went to see if they could find the grave.
Right.
And it seems to have been moved, never have existed, or have been somewhere else. They didn't actually find it.
Yeah.
So, but that again, humanoid being, the weirdly earthly thing of knocking over a windmill, that's a very Doc Brown thing to do.
Well, I think we've said in the past, if we go with this time slip thing, and I'll come on to why it doesn't work in a minute, if we go with it, we've often said they're incompetent, a lot of these aliens from the future.
Very much so.
But if you went with this time slip theory, and also that feeling that came across in the Versailles case of it's weird, it's like you're outside your comfort zone, you don't know what's going on, there's confusion, it would explain why there's so many crashes and incidents, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Because it's the act of the time slip that they're just out of, kilter with what's going on as we are seeing it, effectively.
Yes.
So let's look at the pros and cons. It would explain why aliens are often reported as humanoid. The time slip theory would explain alien craft following or trying to interact with our craft, because they're just as confused of what's going on. To them, our passenger plane has just appeared in their space and time completely out of context, so they would check it out.
Yeah.
Might explain writing and symbols on craft that don't feel totally alien to us, that we have got some frame of reference for. Might explain some of the strange feelings that are reported around UFO sightings and abductions, like your time travellers in Versailles feeling weird. Could explain why UFOs appear and disappear so quickly. I also thought, you mentioned it earlier, but it's a neat solution to the Fermi paradox, in a way. If the universe is so big, how would aliens ever find us and travel here? The answer is they're not aliens. They're humans from the future in a quantum time slip. That's why they're here. I thought that was quite strong. I mean, what it doesn't explain is something we talk about a lot. I know, we've talked about Nessie and stuff, but why don't we see more ghost dinosaurs? If there's time slips going on, why don't we see them? I guess cryptids could be an argument for that. Doesn't explain to me why alien greys or lizard people exist, although I do like your idea of AI, but why would we create them to look like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't explain for me why ghost encounters generally involve interaction with humans, ghostly humans, but UFO encounters mainly involve craft. I mean, if these two things were working as one from the past, one from the future in a time slip, we'd see more horses and carts, we'd see more sailboats. Maybe we just don't register them as weird, but, there are lots of UFO sightings. I don't see many sightings being reported of people in, stagecoaches all the time. I know you get them, but...
Yeah. No, you don't. You don't very often.
So, I don't know. I thought I always try not to kind of have a conclusion when I start this. I thought, I might be onto something. I don't know. I'm back to that thing that we often get on the podcast. I've managed to create more questions than answers, but, I've had a journey through space and time and I've got nowhere. And my gut feeling is I don't think it stacks up that time slips are responsible for ghosts from the future, which means they're probably not responsible for ghosts from the past. So there is something going on with time slips, but also lends to the theory that they are a phenomenon in the here and now.
But it also, I think, says something about the nature of reality, in that if ghosts are only seen as being beings from the past, and we'll ignore the why don't we see punk rockers and things like that, then it means that time does only go in one direction, and maybe time travel backwards is never feasible. Maybe that's true. Now that obviously people are going to go, but wait, you're just saying a ghost can't use a machine in the future. Yeah, maybe, but it does sort of add to the thing of like, well, we say that time as a progression forwards is an invention of the human brain. Does that fact of ghosts always being from the past just add extra weight to the fact it isn't just a perception thing? It's a real thing that we haven't quite understood, but it is always progresses forwards.
Yeah,
that's a very clumsy. It's a good job I'm not a scientist, isn't it?
No, but I get where you're coming from. When I started this, there was almost a feeling of great, I can prove that, or not prove, but come to a strong conclusion that ghosts are not the spirits of dead people. But in many ways, the research seems to kind of fit in with that theory. Of what's going on. I know there are other theories, but maybe that's a bit too much of a leap. It makes the idea that ghosts are time slips all the time. Maybe it happens now and again as a different phenomena, but that ghosts and time slips doesn't explain ghosts. Is probably where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
I think, but it was interesting to travel down that road. I was wondering if you're a believer or a skeptic. It's a weird one, isn't it? There's probably something in this episode for the believers and the skeptics, because I've managed, if you're a believer, you'll probably go, yeah, I always knew ghosts were the spirits of dead people. And if you're a skeptic, you're going, what the hell has Peter been on about for the last hour?
Well, you see, I'm most interested in what the nature of ghosts are. Are they the spirits of the dead, or are they something else? We spoke about it before, so I won't labour on about it, but I still feel that all ghosts aren't just the spirits of dead people. We know about tulpas, and tulpas appear to be a sort of a ghost. And yeah, I don't know that we'll ever answer it. But, we're going to do... I won't push the point too much, but we're going to do a couple of experiments later this year. We will see where our understanding goes with that.
Yeah. Well, to use the time analogy, thanks for giving us your time this week. This was more of a journey than a destination, but I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's good to show the workings, I think, because it takes us on a journey of thought progression where you kind of go, maybe that isn't it. So even if we end up with more questions than answers, that's probably a good thing. And that always seems to be the case with the paranormal.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, we will be back with more quantum mechanics next week.
And more Noisy Dog.
Yeah, stop scratching. He's scratching away. Yes, we'll see you next week for something new. Anything you've got coming up that you want to tease, or should we save that for the scoop?
We'll save it for the scoop, because I'm still halfway through and I don't want to backtrack if it turns out to be a dud. But
cool.
So far, so good. We'll see you at patreon.com/TQM pod for the extra scoop.
See you then.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?